Jamie, welcome to the green room.
How's it
The
going?
the blurry background is not super duper blurry, so some of the clutter, apologies for the clutter behind me.
No apologies for my cat who is just cleaning themselves over here. Zuko's in
Well,
the
your
zone.
field of your camera frame is just cropped
Just
enough we could
yeah,
just see his head
yeah, he's active. Um,
going to town.
yeah, Tink's on the floor. So
So, what I was gonna say, or what I was about to say, off recording, I suppose, off live, was well, this is 170. This is 171
yes,
live stream of episode 171. When we're we're published up to 169, 170 will be coming out
in moments,
within this week.
mere moments,
Kurt somehow
we're
has
back on
bumped
track.
his head and gotten inspired to become way more efficient at the editing process. But that's not my point. My point is um, the the fact that we're caught up, and now I'm it started to escape me a little bit. But I guess I'm most excited about that we've caught up, and the subject matter, I suppose, of the recent you know handful of episodes of which the live component to me has been some of the most fun, the most fun challenge, I suppose, of a podcast. And in fact, we can edit it down and clean up a little bit of the rough edges, but we don't. I don't. I don't think we have very many. I mean, this is unscientific. I don't think we have very many rough edges. But our live stream is a very easy thing to edit when you think about it,
Yes, absolutely.
and
Well,
and the fun part,
and
it
it's
makes it
fun,
more fun.
and it's sort of fun. Like we had talked about here recently is that it's nice to have the level of content creation, for us, where you and I have talked offline and online about kind of things, goals and aspirations that we want to do for ourselves, kind of in this sort of realm. Um, and sometimes it's just nice to kind of reflect and say, we do have a lot of stuff to work with. I think that that's sort of refreshing, and you kind of get these like subtle little gifts. One of which I'm going to share right now, which I think maybe we can kind of clip into a segment, or maybe it ends up being a future episode. I think it's going to be a future episode. Um, but I saw kind of exciting news in Austin, um, and maybe you'll tell me, hey, say this again in the episode. I don't know, but there was some exciting news in Austin. I don't necessarily go to UT, like the University of Texas, that often, unless invited, um, as an Aggie, right?
Enemy territory.
Enemy territory, right?
I get
Um,
it. Understood.
understood. But they do have an architecture school. They do have good art museums. I do go over there and check stuff out from time to time, and keep an eye out for what's going on, because it's local. And they do have an exhibit that's just opened in their architecture building on none other than John Chase.
Oh yeah, really? That's cool. And
Yeah,
we had an episode about
we've had
we
we,
had a
we've had
right.
2 episodes about him.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and so
That
that was
sounds cool.
yeah, and I mean
And is it
literally,
going to
like,
have? Do you have models and drawings,
I
or
don't
is it
know.
more
I
visual?
I've seen one photo, I've seen one photo of the exhibit, and I couldn't tell like what it was going to be. Um,
Cool.
but
Well, you'll have
you
to
know,
capture
yeah,
some candids while walking through the exhibit.
yeah. So I just
Some
I
great
was
work. I mean, we have had to. I mean, we've talked about it with Sandra and Karen.
well, that's three. That makes three.
So there now we're three, and yeah, which was a fun. Um, I'm gonna I always get their their organization a little bit. So it's design noir party or design party noir design noir design party
That's right.
is the right way to put it.
Correct.
And I'm sure Sandra's listening and she's gonna give me a
Well,
little ribbing the next time I see her in person.
and they I just saw too that they've got some new kind of curated exhibit in Detroit that they helped with the research on.
Yeah,
So that might be something for you to check out. But
I do. Yeah, I did
but
see
yeah,
that on their social media. Yeah, which
yeah,
I'll make that trek.
but yeah. Gosh, it was 5 years ago when we talked to them.
I don't even. I had actually recently looked at the roll, the list of our episodes, and I do use some of our guests as um like check-in points, like how what year it
Hmm.
was, what point. And yeah, I you're right. It's astonishing to think that was 5 years ago.
Yeah,
It was such a good time. We should try and maybe get them back.
yeah. I think that they're definitely that was
We've
super
had some
fun.
return visitors, so we could get them
Well,
back.
and they were the first time, and they were the first time we had two guests on at the same time.
Yeah,
And of course, we were
lots
so
of firsts.
yeah. Well, and we were so kind of naive about kind of what we were doing, you know.
Yeah, they
And
were very obligatory or
yeah, well, they were just
obliging our
yeah, they were,
rough and tumble
but
nature.
it's yeah, and it. I mean, it ended up being a fabulous conversation.
Oh
So
yeah,
for anybody who is listening, if you go back to season two, there's actually two episodes about John Chase. One where I'm sort of introducing him to Kurt um, as a Texas architect during Black History Month, and then later on, unbeknownst to me, there was going to be a book that was coming out about one of his projects in high architecture. He was sort of getting the high architecture treatment, kind of where a faculty member had gotten a group of students and they had done a documentation of the house that he had designed for him and his wife
right. Yeah,
and his family. And so there was all these architectural drawings and beautiful photographs and then interviews with the family, and I got myself a copy of the book. And and in addition to that, that author, that professor who had sort of staged this whole kind of project and book, did a webinar, kind of presenting that material as a lecture, and it was fabulous. So, during that lecture, of course, like at that time, hadn't gotten the book hadn't arrived yet, um, but I was doing sketches while they were talking, and so we talked about the house,
yeah,
just the house,
right. Yep.
and but then, of course, we had interviewed our friends and talked about their kind of amazing project that
The
they've been doing.
trailblazers of
Yeah,
black architects in the profession that really established such great work that needs to continue to be documented and reported on, or whatever the word. It's not really the best word, but the yeah,
sort of
bring it to light,
highlighted and
highlight
shared. Yeah, and highlighted
such great
exactly.
work.
Yeah,
And we had and so for Sandra and Karen being more Detroit focused, or Detroit / Michigan focused, but definitely they're totally aware of John Chase,
yeah, with
as
Noma and all.
as all architects are our Rolodex or library of influence, you know expands outwardly toward the globe, not geographically bound and all that stuff. So
But
so yeah,
so interesting stuff. You have stuff to check out there. I have stuff to check out back home, and maybe
I
we
know.
we regroup on a new episode on it. That's my
I know
that's
they're
my that's my big share.
yeah. It's a great start so far. I have. Well, we're actually technically still in the green room, Jamie. So we were like,
We are all
you know,
excited.
all excited, off script, you know. Although we're gonna have to use that as a little clip to for a future episode. because it's going to be a recap for on both ends, and then it'd be great to try and get, as you said, Sandra and Karen in on tape again to maybe have a bit of a bigger discussion about it too. So yeah, very cool. So, well, before we go into the episode, I just want to say there is a Super Bowl pairing. Is it the Super Bowl pairing that we want?
Or the
No.
one we deserve.
I guess it's probably the one we deserve. I was rooting for the Eagles, right? Our friend of the podcast, architect friend Jeff Pasva, Philadelphia Eagles fan, born and bred. Good for them, right? I root for the Eagles had a good, when all I got to say, there's no scientific backing to this, but if Saquon Barkley can jump backwards over a defender, those guys deserve to make it to the Super Bowl.
He is having a year that
I still
should
can't
should
take
give
that
him a
picture.
ticket to that. Yes. Yeah.
That's fantastic. I mean, what a great move.
Well, I mean, and for a year where we saw like like a renaissance with running backs,
Oh
right?
yeah, have you heard the some of the top running backs in the league have a group chat?
Oh no, no.
Oh no, yeah, Derrick
Can we can,
Henry.
can we can we save that for the episode? Can you tell me about it?
Oh yeah.
Okay, we can do
I
that.
mean, I don't know how news it is. I mean, it's
It's
probably
news for
news to
me.
you, so
Well, I didn't know about the group chat. I don't do a whole lot of group chats.
maybe you should.
I guess so. Jeez.
So you're saying that we should just go into the episode?
Yeah.
Fair enough. Hey, Jamie. Welcome
Hey,
to the
Kirk.
show.
Yeah. Well, welcome. Not just welcome to the show, but welcome to the only, as far as we know, and of course we're experts on this, the only architecture themed podcast that also is really just a chat over coffee that is live streamed on
On
the
Twitch
interwebs,
and YouTube.
on
Yeah.
Twitch,
At the
YouTube.
moment, I mean,
At the moment, I mean, there may be more. There might be other
if
folks who
Jamie takes
aspire
the
to do it.
guardrails off, we could start live streaming everywhere. All
Yeah.
kinds. Well, not everywhere per se.
No. We
So
would have to expand the group chat.
yeah. So in the group chat, speaking of group chats, and I can't believe I know something that you don't know in any arena, whether it's sports, academia, architecture, history, or coffee.
I do like the trivia, folks.
But I did learn something that Jamie doesn't know, which is, so we're kind of casually warming up, talking about the playoffs in the NFL and the Super Bowl, and you know, I was kind of saying, oh, the Eagles made it. Saquon Barkley, fantastic running back,
You
jumps
shouted out our friend Jeff, who's a friend
Jeff
of both of
Pasfa, yeah,
ours. Yeah, yeah.
an Eagle fan, I should say, but a born and raised Philadelphian.
Did you watch the game
Which one?
start to finish, like both games, the
Um,
championship games?
I watched the Eagle game, which was a blowout.
Right.
And unfortunately, I did not have access to Paramount Plus.
Mm.
I had to do the old, stat tracker kind of watch,
Yeah.
and
It's
of
like an old school radio,
the
folks.
Bills game. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I was a little mad, but also, you gotta, you know, when at home, you gotta balance your sports consumption, with your
All I'll say,
significant other.
well, all I'll just say is that in that Eagles game, Like if you got to see the pregame and or like the from start to finish, that damn bald eagle like looked friggin' locked in, like in a way that that poor animal soaring around the stadium. Like when it came back to its handler, I don't know what a handler for a bald eagle is. We'll look that up. But
The definition.
like, I just saw that whole sequence and I was like, I think everybody else is going to have trouble tonight.
Well, yeah, they definitely came out guns blazing.
His
The
level of superstition and weird fandom, like I do know, but yeah. Anyhow,
well, superstition wise, I did bump into some neighbors, local, a lot of neighbors over at our local watering hole, and I said, okay, who wear their socks inside out? Who were, who messed up? You know, who blew the superstition? Because when the Lions lost to the Commanders, whichever one thought they were going to have this easy road to the Super Bowl, and then I'm like, okay, so who did it? Whose fault is it? Superstition wise, yeah. So there you have it. I don't want to talk about the
no,
Lions
no, no.
anymore.
We're just gonna skip over that part of the story.
but
Both of us did have other predictions, but
but group
yes,
chats.
group chats.
That the thing that Jamie didn't know is that Derrick Henry from the Ravens, Saquon. Um, I'm not sure if they pulled Jameer Gibbs in, but basically all the guys that are the core running back leaders of the NFL have a group chat, and they said we want to raise the profile of what a running back is for the NFL, and that's why this year has been so exciting
I think
in the running game.
it really has. I mean, for someone who just loves the sports, as you do too, um, you know, there was definitely this sort of fall off in several years where the running game and running backs in
The
general,
usage,
the
right? The
usage,
the play the plays that it would be these little dump
dink,
passes,
half ass passes, and like, I mean, which are sort of the fact that they're doing the half ass passes now that, like, it's really helping the padding the passing stats, but but they're doing that because the running backs have elevated to this other level where it's like, oh, whoa, we want a piece of that too.
Yeah.
And it's opened the playbook in a way that's super refreshing.
Oh, yeah.
Uh,
Yeah,
and
it's been a lot more exciting to watch for sure.
well, and it also means that, I think just from a, you know, fan of the game, right, is that now you don't have to have kind of one offensive formula or one defensive formula to, model your whole team or build your whole team around. Now with, the resurgence of the running back, and these guys are playing out of their mind. I mean,
Yeah.
like Henry, that's a
Yeah.
MVP caliber season. Saquon, same thing. I mean, a couple quarterbacks who have had some MVP type seasons too, but just the two of them alone. I mean, the stuff that they're doing on the field and how it's contributing to the overall success of their franchises and their teams this year is just. I mean, you can't you can't underestimate the impact that they've had as players, and that hasn't happened for several years. For most of those teams at that kind of level. So, cheers to that. Goodness. So
Yeah. It's been a lot more fun for sure. And pop culture wise. And let's say what's the word? Generationally. Um the fact that Jameer Gibbs uh aligned with the nickname Sonic from Sonic the Hedgehog, the video game, just shows how old we are. And how the culture of the younger players is sort of starting to shine through in their own way, and it's pretty cool. So, and then you have all kinds of things like back in the day they didn't cater uniforms or you know shoes and things that but he even had like a couple of games he had cleats that looked like Sonic's shoes. I don't know if you noticed that. It's pretty sweet. Um, which were red, right? I mean, lines are Honolulu blue, and he had these red shoes with the buckle and all that stuff. And
Honolulu, even folks,
Honolulu blue, it's that's the
like
lion's color.
Kurt
If
is
you know,
pulling
you know.
all, yeah, Kurt is pulling out all the deep cuts for
Although
those
this year
who
they
don't
rock
use their
these nice.
hands as a map.
That's right. But the yeah, the lions. Anywho, we don't need to dwell on that because that's still a thing. But we move on. But
We move on. There is an episode to be had, folks. Yes, this is 171, and
yeah.
we're all caught up and we're excited. We've got lots of good ideas, lots of good content coming.
Yep. And we got, friends traveling into town and speaking engagements and all that, as Jamie was trying to
In
say.
both
I'm
in both
teasing.
states, even
Yeah.
both states, even. So,
So what are you drinking these days then, Mr. Jamie?
well, in my efforts to try and diversify like the different coffees that I, sort of, you get in a rut, folks. Sometimes you forget, what the ones that you like. And so I went back to Little City
Okay.
and got Congress Avenue, which I don't know if Kurt's had Congress. You've had the Grackle.
Mm-hmm.
The Congress Avenue is a little bit more of a smooth kind of light medium roast from them, a little more chocolatey notes than anything.
Oh yeah.
And so I have purposely bought an extra. So I'm like developing a slow moving care package.
Oh, thanks. All right. Hint noted. Point taken. The and for me, oddly enough, the when I went back to Dale's, which is our local kind of more organic grocer, single only, it's not a non-chain. I don't really know what to call them, but a local grocer and
It's Dale.
Dale's, and they had their bulk coffee bean selection. They had a medium roast. I don't have the bag in front of me, so I can't remember the name, but it's a medium, a light medium that also has a very chocolatey scent. Like I can pick it up in my nose and taste it. It was quite nice. I might have to get you some. I'll remember the name. I have it written on the bag. I just don't have it in front of my face. Um, but yeah, it's good. It's pretty good. Did I mention I'm struggling? Um, I got an Are you familiar with AeroPress
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
coffee brewing or coffee making? So I put on my Christmas wish list and I got one with the travel mug and I lost a part. I've already lost a part. I like never lose anything of my stuff. The thing, especially the things I cherish, like coffee. And I lost this. I think I accidentally threw it away. Because in order to make another cup of coffee, you have to take the filter cover off and then push the plunger all the way through and then pops the filter out. So I I think I might have just dropped the filter cover right into the trash can because I don't have it. So
That's
thankfully,
that's
they
like that's really dramatic.
it is sad. I mean, it's not even been a month,
Yeah.
so I'm limping along. Like I still have my French press, which is great, but the Aeropress
But you had the new toy. You were
is my new
excited.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have this one. I was about to prepare another cup, on a different day, and I have the paper filter that it came with. Like it came with a little pack, and I went to assemble the whole thing, and I didn't have the filter cover, and I'm like, oh, asking my wife, asking the dog, asking anybody in earshot, and nobody's seen it. And so then the realization sets in, and so this filter is sitting out on the counter waiting to be
As a
used
reminder,
to go back to the website. And luckily, it's a company that's I think founded by an engineer, so they have replacement parts
they know,
smartly. Yeah.
they know. Yeah.
So that's the
They might throw some shade and say
sad news.
you've only had it a month.
I don't.
That's
I
a
bet
little
you I
it's a
wouldn't be
little
the first one.
fast. It's a little fast, but we got you covered.
Yeah, thankfully. I mean, what I like about it is I don't have to buy the whole thing again.
Yes.
That annoys me the worst. But anyway, that's a whole other can of worms. So anyway, so yes, I have a very similarly flavored coffee to Jamie. Long
Nice.
story short. So
Yeah. Well, I think folks, we are on more of a same wavelength. We've been kind of
2025 is
not
the
diverging, but 2025
converging.
we're converging. Um, Big things to come. Speaking of which,
Well,
tr-
yeah, I think it's a good time to talk about some recent sketches. So that's what we got going here.
so on the right we have a sketch from this last weekend. It was a birthday weekend, folks. Um, the lady that sometimes you hear the shaky shaky in the background, Miss Tinkerbell herself, in
Mm-hmm.
the Eames Lounger, her favorite chair. She turned 14 this weekend.
No,
So, and of
what a
course, that had to draw a portrait.
what a nice sketch though. In the Eames lounge chair, no less.
Oh yeah, with her blankie, one of her blankies. She's got two that are her
I mean,
favorites.
I know we've been friends a long time, but you know, our dogs are people too, and you know, they deserve to live life in luxury, in good mid-century furniture, and so shouldn't be. It's not a too precious of an object
Oh God, no, no,
that
no.
Tinkerbell, Lady Tinkerbell, can't enjoy a little comforting sit,
We're not talking about a museum. This is your house,
just
right?
just like just like the owner. It's a great sketch though. I mean, so Tink's a puggle, no, right?
Pugget.
Pugget,
Yeah,
which is a pug. What's the other
Italian
Italian
greyhound.
greyhound?
Italian greyhound. Yeah,
Pugget, Puget.
Puget. The Puget, if you are in the north, and a Pugget if
Up
you were
north.
in the south.
But she's uh, black fur, so the
Yeah,
black ink of the pilot pen works well with the white face, and then sort of the curly
the
ears and
face
and
wasn't
all that.
always white, folks. Like that's the
Uh,
gray and the
Aging.
yeah,
That's the 14.
yeah.
That's
That's
the
the
state.
14. Yeah,
That's the stately age of 14.
yeah.
But yeah, we see Tink, and sometimes she tries to show her face if she needs to, but it's kind of fun. Have you ever thought about how many sketches of Tinkerbell you've made?
Oh gosh,
We've seen many.
that's a
Maybe
great
we haven't.
question.
We've never had. I'm sure we haven't put all on the podcast, but in saying our preparations, right? If they pop up on Instagram, there's been
No,
many.
it's a great question, and it's funny because like around her birthday, um, and around the holidays, or even my own birthday or M's birthday, like there's always that's
Anybody's birthday,
any okay. So I draw her a lot. Is basically the answer. Um, she's a
nostalgia.
she's a princess, and and she just she's great because she is totally the lapdog. She does like to pose. she understands the camera. Um, so it's, and the posing for a portrait like this is one where, like, if she's in her favorite spot, I can basically do like an in situ sketch because
Oh,
she's not going anywhere. She's
no,
like,
yeah, a great
Dad,
subject. Great
yeah, she's
subject.
like, Dad, you're in your spot. Like, you seem to be doing your thing where you don't move around a lot, and I can just be right here and keep an eye on things. Um, yeah,
Well, does she like to be in a human lap, like your lap?
she's not like,
Or
she doesn't want
she's
to
a
be.
bit more of a like, let's share space, but we don't have to be on top of each other.
Both of them, both the cat and the dog, want to be in the shared space kind of vibe.
Huh.
Tink also wants to be touching, but not necessarily
Ah,
like, I need to sit on you, like all over your in your business
but
kind of.
near.
But like, as long, like, if she could do a heavy lean,
Yeah.
on your
I
leg
think
or your
that's
side,
there's a
she's
psychology to that, you
yeah,
know.
she's good. And if
We've
it
had
happens to involve like one of her favorite blankets, there's a
I
heaven
see.
component to this. So
Oh yeah. I mean, my point is we've had many dogs together, my wife and I, and um some are well, the first one we've had always had to be in Danielle's lap. I mean, I would occasionally get some love, but had to be in the lap. Second dog, he was like the lean guy. Like he liked to lean. Current dog is more like a nearby. Like I don't need.
like I got an
Sometimes,
like I got an eye on you. It's good.
yeah,
You know,
and people probably think we're crazy for going into this level of detail on pet companionship, but it's the dynamic, and which is why we wind up memorializing them in a sketch or two,
absolutely.
and it's part of life, fixtures.
Well, I mean, as you say, like, if and I think so. We've talked about themes. We're going to talk about a theme here in a moment with the next sketch. But even with our furry friends, so Zuko, like my current cat, um, he also wants to be like, he is very much my cat and wants to know where I am. He also wants to know where Tink is because he loves Tinkerbell,
Oh,
but um,
is it
it's
reciprocal?
uh, not as much. So Tink also had the benefit of Peter Pan. So Tinkerbell, like, if you're going to name a dog Tinkerbell, there's got to be a story. And so Tinkerbell is the dog that Peter Pan was able to raise. So I had a cat named Peter Pan, and Petey was great. Very much like Zuko, wanted to know where everybody was and take care of things and all that stuff. But Petey was the one who, like you say, with you know your dog who wanted to sit in Dee's lap all the time. Petey wanted to be like in my lap all the time, or like next to my head when I'm sleeping, or next to me, or touching me, or whatever. But when we got Tinkerbell, Petey also wanted to be like I got sort of replaced by Tinkerbell in that, where and so it was sort of this, like, Petey would basically sort of check on me, M, and Tink, and sort of in a rotation. So Tinkerbell was like Petey's baby, so, which is super sweet. Um, um, but yeah, I yeah, we went down a road, but it's like you said, it's very important and very good. So
Yeah. So thematically, I mean, so the next sketch that we paired with Tinkerbell is not about a dog, but I suppose one connection is chronological, because they're dated, near the same. But what do you have to say? It's I see you've got the book of the Havana Project, which subtitles with Co-op Himmelblau, Morphosis, Erica Moss, uh, is it Carme Pinos, Levius Woods, and CPPN, which I'm not familiar with them. But you've got a superstar cast of architect characters on the cover of this book. And I'm not familiar with this book. So you pulled some sketches, or you created some sketches, I assume, pulled from the book. So where'd this come from, I suppose, and what's your angle
So,
here?
so my angle. Thank you for asking. My angle is, um, I was trying to come up with a new theme that I've not tried before. New year, new theme, and the
Got it.
new theme is going to be like art as architects, right, and as sort of artists and people who love history and culture and all that kind of stuff is and having the tangibility of it, like having the artifact or the book in your hand. um, Kurt had shared with me, and this is what's actually sort of prompted this. Kurt had shared with me a book that he had gotten at over the holidays and was excited, and it made me think about books that are on my bookshelf, that I'm excited about. And because, again, as artist architects, we will periodically pull books randomly off the shelf that we know are there. We know where they are on the bookshelf. I am not that person who's got them all alphabetical or whatever. That's just not it. So you go and seek that book out, and it's because there's something in there that you remember. And then as you're flipping through it, you're kind of getting inspired. And so I've thought, this early part of the year, I'm going to start pulling out books as a theme for the work that I'm going to be doing in the sketchbook. And so this was that first one of that. Um, so this is the Havana project. And as Kurt said, there's sort of a who's who of architects, um, that were. This is sort of a paper architecture study,
Mhm.
and it's a fascinating book, and kind of a symposium of sorts that occurred in Cuba, and um, out of it, it was sort of me kind of reconnecting a little bit with the architects that are in it, but also sort of Lebbeus Woods,
Mm.
and um, so that's where some of the impulse was to pull this one off the shelf first, per se.
So was there a particular sketch um, style or technique that you were going to apply as part of the New Year exploration, or is it more about just kind of dusting off a book that you know it's got the gems inside, and you just gotta unearth them for a little while?
It's a great question, and I think it's more about just sort of dusting off the book, and letting that be the impulse to where the sketch goes. Um, I, I say that this one is the one that sort of crystallized it for me as a kind of a movement and a moment that I'm going to experiment with. Over the holidays, I had pulled some books that my uncle had given me when I was in college about Canadian architects off the shelf, and that had inspired some other things. But that was more about me thinking about home and Montreal and whatnot. But this isn't necessarily connected to that, even though it's something that I do from time to time. Um, but this book is one that I'm just so glad that I have it. I mean, and it's got this really great. I mean, this is the thing that you can't get from a digital copy of things, right? Is from the physical copy, and you can see it there in the image, is there's this hand drawn image of Cuba, of Havana, and it's a fold out. So
Yeah.
in the book, only one fold out in the whole entire book,
Oh.
and it's a
Uh-huh.
fold out image, Um, and because I think what was interesting about the studies that all these architects were doing was they were finding fascinating parts of the city for them and then reacting to it. In Liebes's case, it was about the relationship to the water and how the kind of seawall kind of resilience ideas that we now see decades and decades later, he's experimenting with in a sketch. And and then what does that do to the fabric of the city? And so that sort of sketch quality and kind of imagination, um, you know, I think is always an entry point for me as an architect and as an artist. Um, and so the sketches that I'm doing have nothing to do with Cuba, have nothing to do with Havana, um, but more about sort of, I think, watching that exploration of drawing and then trying to apply it to things that I'm currently working on, as design problems, and how, um, what I found fascinating both in his work as well as a couple of the others in the book, um, is this idea of sort of, as you're studying a place, you're also kind of creating these vignettes, kind of little
Yeah.
snapshots of town that you're going to focus on and kind of study and understand and then sort of apply your knowledge to. And so that's where you're sort of seeing evolve a bit in the sketchbook, is this idea of a street scene, a vignette, plan section, elevation, perspective, all at once in a series of different images, and sort of evolving an idea or series of ideas around it.
Well, it's actually kind of fun timing because of the studio that I'm teaching right now. This is a second year studio, and we've rebuilt a lot of the assignments for the semester in a much more abstract manner. Um, I say we, but it's mostly been the coordinator, Martin. Um, and we're along for the ride, which is the fun part. And but the premise is a lot about the notion of the vignette as a way to capture the essence and the portray the intent that is in the design of this, the student's design intent for how they want people to experience the spaces. As simple as that. I mean, well, it sounds easier said than done. I mean, developing a complex sequence of space or movement is no easy task, but the vignette, or that sort of vignette perspective sketch, is there to sort of highlight a particular concept or notion in the design intent. And I try, like what you've done here is tell my students, I was like, this is the fun part, right? Like, you want to trade jobs for a day because you want to answer all the contractor RFIs that I have right now. Because I'd much rather be doing what you're doing, even though they scratch their head a little bit and they're kind of looking at the assignment like where to begin, right? I mean, it's one of those things that, like, as we go through, with experience, you come back to these things and you think about the fun that can be had by not having too many guardrails or constraints, and sort of defining a few assets into a program, right? Like what you're doing is maybe picking out a couple of things that you want to be the asset or the generator of the concept, and then allowing the sketches to sort of traverse or test out various compositional arrangements that might speak to that, right? And so I'm trying to portray to the students, it's like, hey, um we still do this, right?
Well, and
After so many years, you're in second year, and I've long, long been away from second year, but this is the essence of
It,
architecture.
well, and it's funny the way you sort of started to say that too, is that you want to trade places, and then they sort of have this moment of, I'm not sure where to go, like
You're
I'm not
right.
sure where to start,
Yeah,
and and
both
that's
here.
not and that's not you know that's not housed in experience or in youth. That's everybody. And
Yeah.
so I think what I chose to do in this particular case, and hopefully this series of sort of pulling a book off the shelf to kind of inspire myself will allow me to kind of explore, and that's sort of the intention with it. Is I have some preconceived memories of what that book I'm excited about in flipping through and sort of seeing. And there's a repository of that sort of Rolodex of thoughts in my mind. And as I go back to the books on my shelf, I'm seeking out a particular project as an entry point. But that's more than likely not where I'm going to land. There's something else that I'm gonna gravitate towards now, because that's my memory of it, and now I'm somewhere else. And so what happened here is, as I'm sort of flipping through and realizing not just the work of Lebius but all the work of the other architects, is that there's sort of this stylistic impulse of how to render thoughts and in sort of different sort of sketch forms, and kind of why I like Lebius's drawings, and just why they resonate with me. But in the sketch, what's interesting is I'm sort of stuck with this premise of the the what you're viewing and where you are as a viewer, and trying to create that dynamic relationship between those two things, and then the layers of space in between it. So what you see on the left of the sketch is sort of the first blush. Okay, I'm the viewer, and you can see that sort of scale person in there, on the street, looking
Hmm.
into the image
Hmm.
of the storefront or the space. Sort of think of like a PS1, kind of New York City. You're looking into the storefront and you're looking into the exhibit, and it's super scaled. It's something that's out of scale with you as the viewer. Okay, well, what does that mean in plan? Okay, where are those objects? So then I flip to plan and I try and figure out where those objects are. And then as I start to look at that and go, well, that's not really giving me everything that I want, I kind of go back to the vignette, and I'm looking at it more purely as elevation and section. And that leads me from the first page to the second page. And now I'm trying to figure out, how do I layer space so that I know where I am as the viewer, and I know where these objects or this sort of environment that I'm designing
Hmm.
or creating is. Are there moves that I can do as layers, literal layers of space between those two things, those events? And that's really what this is exploration of that concept, and through a variety of sketches. And then by the end, like that last sketch on the right is honestly plan, section, elevation, all at the same time. Where
Yeah.
you're looking down at it, and it could be a plan of layered spaces with those sort of
Hmm.
dark strokes that are sort of defining it. But it also could be an elevation, of the spaces you're looking into it, or as a section where you're sort of literally layering those spaces, in the context of scale,
Hmm.
and you're
Hmm.
providing some scale to those objects. So it, and again, not with a result. This is
Right.
this is a process drawing, and
Yeah. Yeah.
intended to be one. But
Yeah. No, that's exactly what I was trying to convey to the students, is that, like, don't worry about polish now. This is day one of 4 weeks. Like just, populate your drawings with ideas, and let's talk about the ideas. You don't have to have resolved every single thing, right? And so what you've generated here are just the snapshots of ideas, and how they could then be, if the next step is, evolution, or if you deploy two or three of them into a scheme that starts to communicate, more about a sequence of spaces, a cluster of spaces programmatically, than individual components, right? And so it's kind of funny how, so we just launched this this week, and I even told some of the students, it's like, I might even do this myself because it sounds like a lot of fun. They don't necessarily know. I mean, maybe if they're listening now, that they'll know that this is the first ish. I mean, when we say, it's a very loaded term when we say it's the first time we've done this assignment. It's the first version of an evolution of an assignment, but it's not the first time this conversation has happened
Right.
in
I mean,
a design studio for second year.
yeah, I mean, principles
Is
of
the
it.
is the
Yeah,
clarity.
yeah, the principles of the exercise are always there,
Yeah.
and 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 maybe even the end result of sort of what the product might end up looking like, or kind of what the targets for that product might be. But yeah, the formulation of that, the process piece, kind of, or the provocation. Maybe let's just call it what it is, right? It's a
Uh-huh.
provocation, right? The
Yeah.
provocation is different, and I
Yeah.
think that that's the thing that makes it fresh for the educator, um, who's sort of setting the stage, but also for the studio itself. So it's, that in and of itself is the experiment. Um, yeah, I think that the reminder of of process, both for student and professor in that design studio, is, um, gosh, why can't we just say it? Like that's just, it's so important. And it's because these things aren't, um, they're not written in stone. They're not a NAB criteria that's like, comes with a series of diagrams and exercises at the end of the.
Well, some of it is.
Some of it. Well,
Some of it winds up getting
if you're
there,
on
but
that
yeah.
committee, maybe it looks like that.
Well,
But
you have to. Well, that's a whole other a can of worms as far as the accreditation items. But yeah, no, you're right. You're right on. And yeah, I like the idea of the provocation, because yeah, those the prompts of a provocation can vary, but the process is something that can be, mm, I wouldn't say across the board similar, but for each designer, kind of develop the process in their own way. Obviously, there's certain conventional things we try and teach them, but then adapting those to get there. So yeah, so maybe that's the exercise. I'm not necessarily doing it in competition,
no,
but more of a way to sort of build on what we've talked about here, and see if there's a way to. I mean, whether it's formalized in, um, the sketchbook, as you put, or you've created, or me and a pen and trace paper in studio, I wind up tearing off and giving it to the student. I don't keep it to myself. I just hand over my sketches. But yeah, I might snap a few pics on next time in class. But yeah, showing them through my own hand, the way to start to think about these things. So luckily, we do have, I wouldn't say luckily, um, anyway.
well,
They're very digital capable, but also have interest in pursuing, sketching, um, There was a bit of time in the past 5 years that you kind of had a little more digital lean and a little lean away from hand. But I think we're starting to see a little balance coming back.
Well, at at the end of the day, regardless of the the tool and apparatus that you're doing it, um, what you're describing about sort of sketching and tearing off and handing it to the student, saying here's some things to think about, or like, this is a great conversation. Here's my visual notes from that conversation for you. That's a superpower that will always remain a superpower of our education and our practice, whether we like it or not. We're all human beings, and that conversation with folks where we pull out a pen or get on our tablet or whatever and draw something, and not just draw something, but as we've said on this podcast before, draw something and be able to talk about it while you're drawing.
Hmm.
That's the whole thing, because I've sat with students, I've sat with professionals who will, I'll sketch something up for you, and you're like, okay, and it's like
Waiting, waiting,
waiting,
waiting, waiting.
waiting, waiting, like it's like loading, 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 loading.
Well, I totally get that because the
Yeah,
attention span gets a lot shorter. So you got to talk through the whole
yeah. I mean, regardless of your
script.
generation, folks, I mean, our attention span, like even the ones of us that are the olds, like we lived through the dial-up age, and we understand what that is to download and strip that piece of music off of Napster or wherever. We get it, and so I don't want to wait for somebody to sketch in front of me when I can sketch it maybe as fast or faster than them. I want to hear them sketch and talk, because that sketching and talking is now we're having a conversation over process.
Hmm.
And I'm learning from them, and I'm getting a perspective that they have about the thing we're talking about, and vice versa. And so remember, it does, and at that point, sometimes those, and I will do it myself. Is like I will apologize sometimes as I'm sketching in that moment and say, "This is not my best sketch," and they're like, and if they know me, they're like, "We know you like to sketch." They like they sort of throw that aside, because as long as I'm talking about what I'm drawing, the conversation is being pushed forward,
Yeah.
and that at that point you realize the sketch is not sacred. The conversation is really what we're having, and if we all keep doing that, and you keep doing that with your students, you know we're all going to be in a better place.
Yeah. There's hope for the next generation. But yeah, that's fun. I think I don't need to belabor it any longer. But I think the concept of process is can be simple and complex and expandable, like adaptable. And yeah, at the end of the day, because I bounce back and forth between a sophomore level and a senior level studio, and so the the techniques and approach in both really can be the same. Certain aspects then become a little bit higher level or further detail, but our approach doesn't have to be different just because you're in second year or fourth year. I guess is my. I guess that's where I'll leave it. So we'll see. Maybe next week there'll be a few sketches to describe to Jamie what we've been talking about in studio. So
Exciting, exciting, exciting.
thanks. We'll see. We'll see you later.